In the early decades of the 17th century, the English colony of Virginia was still an experiment, fragile, desperate, and clinging to survival on the edge of a vast, unfamiliar continent. Jamestown was not yet the powerful symbol of American beginnings it would later become. It was a struggling outpost plagued by hunger, disease, and fear. Tobacco had begun to promise wealth, but that wealth demanded labor, backbreaking, relentless labor under a brutal sun. To meet this demand, the colony relied on a workforce drawn from two worlds. Poor Europeans arrived as indentured servants, bound by contracts of years. Africans, forcibly taken from their homelands, arrived under far more ambiguous terms, sometimes servants, sometimes slaves, their status undefined, their future terrifyingly uncertain. The law had not yet decided what an African life was worth. Among these men was John Punch. Punch was African, intelligent, observant, and deeply bound by loyalty to his fellow laborers, and especially to his brother Kofi. Kofi was not just family, he was Punch's anchor in a hostile world. Torn from Africa together, they endured the brutal Atlantic crossing and the harsh reality of colonial Virginia side by side. Kofi was owned by William Evans, a powerful planter and member of Virginia's elite. Punch belonged to Hugh Gwynn, another influential figure whose wealth and reputation depended on silence and order. The brothers were separated by ownership but remained connected by shared labor, stolen moments, and whispered memories of home. Then something happened that should never have happened. Punch began to notice a resemblance, an unmistakable one. Thomas Gwynn, Hugh Gwynn's young son, bore the features of Kofi. The same eyes. The same bone structure. The same unmistakable African traits, softened only slightly by English lineage. At first, Punch tried to dismiss it as coincidence. But the resemblance was too precise, too haunting. The truth, once glimpsed, could not be unseen. Kofi had been involved in a forbidden relationship with Margaret Evans, the English wife of William Evans. Such a relationship was unthinkable in colonial Virginia. It threatened property, inheritance, racial hierarchy, and male authority. When Evans discovered the affair, he did not seek justice, he sought silence. Kofi was murdered. Quietly. Brutally. His body disposed of, his grave left unmarked. The colony closed ranks. But Punch remembered. And Punch asked a question. Why does young master look exactly like my brother? That question was dangerous. Soon after, Punch attempted to escape Virginia with 2 European servants. The attempt failed. All 3 were captured and dragged before the Virginia court in 1640. Their crime was the same. But their punishments would not be. The Europeans received extended contracts, more years of labor, but eventual freedom. Punch, however, was sentenced to life servitude. This was not slavery as it would later be codified, but it was the beginning of something far darker. The court's decision marked the first time race alone determined permanent bondage in English America. No statute yet existed. No law explicitly stated it. But precedent had been set. John Punch was condemned not just for escape, but for knowing too much, for asking the wrong question. The court records were cold, legalistic, and chillingly brief. No mention of Kofi. No mention of Margaret Evans. No mention of resemblance, murder, or conspiracy. Silence became policy. Punch returned to Hugh Gwynn's plantation, bound for life. Years passed. The plantation grew. Wealth multiplied. Tobacco fields expanded. And Punch worked, aging, watching, remembering. He saw Thomas Gwynn grow into manhood, carrying the living proof of a truth the colony refused to acknowledge. That truth lived on in blood. Thomas Gwynn never knew his origins. Or if he did, he never spoke of them. He inherited his father's estate, married well, and became a respected member of Virginia's colonial assembly. His children would inherit not only land and wealth, but the hidden legacy of African blood flowing silently through their veins. Kofi's son walked freely as a white man. Kofi lay forgotten in an unmarked grave. Punch knew this. And he lived with it every day. As night fell over the plantation, Punch would lie on his rough straw pallet, staring into darkness. The sounds of colonial Virginia surrounded him, the hoot of an owl, the creak of wooden walls, the whisper of wind through leaves. But his mind was a storm of memories and ghosts. He thought of Kofi. His brother, stolen twice, once by slave traders, once by men who feared the truth. He thought of the son Kofi would never know. The boy who carried his face. He thought of the question that had shattered his world. A question that refused to die. Because that question was larger than him. It was a question that echoed through the colony's future, asked by countless others who would suffer under the system his sentence helped to forge. A system that would soon harden into law. John Punch died in 1655, still bound to Hugh Gwyn's plantation. His death was recorded with chilling brevity. John Punch, African, deceased. No age. No cause. No acknowledgement of his life or his courage. He was buried at the edge of the plantation, in an unmarked grave among other forgotten servants. Within a year, grass erased all trace of him. It was as if he had never existed. But his legacy did. The legal precedent established by Punch's sentence became the foundation upon which slavery was built. Within decades, the Virginia Assembly passed laws making slavery hereditary, permanent, and exclusive to Africans and their descendants. By 1700, slavery had become the engine of the colonial economy, a system of exploitation that would endure for over 2 centuries. The question John Punch asked was answered not with truth, but with chains, whips, and laws designed to erase humanity. The men who benefited prospered. Hugh Gwyn died in 1663, honored and respected, buried beneath an imposing stone. His wife, Ellalenina Gwyn, lived in quiet decline, never speaking of the secrets she carried. William Evans remained powerful until his death, his reputation intact, his crime unspoken. The overseer Robert, whose testimony sealed Punch's fate, vanished from records. Some say guilt destroyed him. Others say he fled. Like so much else, the truth was swallowed by silence. For centuries, the story remained buried, hidden in dusty court records, overlooked footnotes, and deliberate omissions. Until historians uncovered it piece by piece, revealing how a single question helped define the fate of millions. John Punch never lived to see the truth acknowledged. But his question echoed through abolitionist movements, civil rights struggles, and modern scholarship. It is still being asked today. By descendants searching for identity, by historians confronting uncomfortable truths, by a nation still reckoning with the legacy of slavery. This is not merely a historical anecdote. It is a reminder that history is shaped not only by the powerful, but by ordinary people whose voices were silenced. That injustice, once written into law, can endure for centuries. And that truth, no matter how deeply buried, always leaves a mark. A single question. A single sentence. A nation forever changed.